Hey everybody, my name is Adrian Cepeda. I'm so thankful to be here. Yes, I own a bookstore. We've celebrated 2 years. This topic is extremely important to me because you think books it's for everyone, but there is gatekeeping there too. These guests that we have are amazing people. I'm lucky to be in front of them. I'm lucky to ask some questions. And please keep in mind if you guys have any burning questions right now or after, write it down, put it in your phone, Q&A, and then afterward, always support. You know, we had an author come by. It's like capitalism sucks, but it is a way to keep our art flowing. It is a way to keep our art going. So anything you can, follow them, support them in any which way. So without further ado, let me get my notes out. Ladies first, we're going to introduce Caridad de la Luz. She's the executive director of the New Eurekan Emmy, and she's an Emmy Award-winning poet. She's of New Eurekan Cafe. They're under reconstruction right now. I am very excited. Obviously, I'm in literature, but yes, please come up, Caridad.
Hello.
Hi.
Right here?
Okay, yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Right.
Next up, Emmeline Stewart. She's an entrepreneur, producer, and founder of Stewart Cinema, the first Black Latina-owned movie theater in New York. So please give it up for Emmeline. Woo.
Hello.
All right, next we got Ramon Veras, founder of Unchin Media, storyteller and entrepreneur. Please come up.
Yes.
And last but certainly not least, Amaru Urion, co-founder of Bronx Native and creative social entrepreneur. Please come up. I'll just give quick one-liners because they're all going to introduce themselves. Because who better to speak on us than us? So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much. Thanks. I'm lucky to be in front of you all. You guys are all incredible in your own right. So, we're going to, exactly what I said, we're going down the list right here. Please, who are you? What do you do? And if you can quickly answer, how is collaboration community a big part of all your work?
Okay. So I took notes. I wrote these things before I came in here because when the lights are on, right, it gets like. So I am a New Eurekan poet. I am a spiritual interpreter, a steward of sacred spaces and defender of legacy institutions, and an all-around bad mama jamma boricua boss bruja.
And that's why I didn't do a big intro. Oh, no. How does collaboration community building big part of your work? How is it?
Okay, yes, collabs. Well, as an artist, before I became executive director of the New Eurekan Poets Cafe, and I was doing hip hop and theater and comedy and all these things. And as an artist, I would collaborate with so many different people in different facets of art because of the dedication and love of the craft. It was about just doing it, you know. And then as executive director, all of those connections that I made in that first part of my career, I brought into that, like creating a village of like-minded individuals, similar purposes, so that, especially Puerto Rican-based, because that's important to me as a Puerto Rican woman, that these cultural institutions that are Puerto Rican be connected and not competing, but collaborating, creating community and connection. So, yeah.
Yeah, please. Come on.
Wonderful. I'm Emmeline Stewart. I am the first Black Latina. I can't believe in 2025 we're still saying this. The first Black Latina to own a movie theater here in New York. So I was executive producing and investing in a ton of independent projects. I think I'm on project 20. And I couldn't get theatrical distribution. I kept hitting all of these walls and these gatekeepers who were deciding that my content just wasn't good enough. They didn't see an audience for it. And I thought, why does that pendejo get to decide? Why? Why does he get to decide? How do we do this so I could decide what people watch in movie theaters? And while I was having one of those woe is me moments, my friend said, you just got to build your own movie theater. And I thought, that's all I have to do? Of course, I had no idea what I was doing. I built the theater, I couldn't get movies, and it was hard. But it came out of being a filmmaker. I really grew up in corporate America, so I really was an investor. But I wasn't making my money back the way that I should. And it wasn't because the projects weren't amazing. It was because the filmmakers had no access. I only had like one friend at NBC when I read my first script. And I called him up and I said, I want to produce this short film because this filmmaker, you know, I think he could pull it off. I think he could make this film. And my friend at NBC said, don't do it. You're going to lose all your money. He said, there's no money in short films. You're going to lose your money. But I did it anyway because I saw something in this filmmaker. And at the time, I had no experience. So I spent all this money producing this movie. And it went on to win a whole bunch of awards. And then I thought, if I could figure out how to make money, and I could figure out how to get through the doors, then I could do this for a lot of filmmakers. I can continue to invest. I can executive produce. And that really started the whole thing with the movie theater. And so really, and then I wanted it to be more than just movies, right? Because it can't just be about the movies. It has to be about the relationships, about the benefits, about storytelling, about uniting people, about community. And so that's what I've built with Stewart Cinema.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Yeah. Please, Ramon.
Ramon Veras, founder of Unchi Media, Unchi Magazine. I'm an entrepreneur for 25 years. I understood early on that in order for me to tell our stories, I had to finance it. So my first goal was to make the money and then eventually pivot to creating art. So started the magazine 20 years ago, stopped, financial reasons, printing was dead. And about a year ago, I started back again and started doing social media, way back giving people unchi of better stories, telling stories from a positive point of view and balancing that narrative that is out there, what Latinos are, from all aspect. Artists, behind-the-scene people, entrepreneurs, a story like yours, a story that I see everywhere, with great quality, a lot of effort, and financially putting that money into it.
Woo.
All right. Can I get a yeah?
Yeah.
Need more energy than that. It's the 25th annual. Can I get a yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, that's better. My name is Amaudis Grujong. I'm a creative social entrepreneur based in the Boogie Down Bronx. Who's from the Boogie Down out here? Let me see those X's up. Let's get it. Yes. Love that. So I have a brand called Bronx Native. We like to say it's more than a brand. It is a movement. We have a brick and mortar shop. We are very much a community-based brand here to change the narrative and make sure that the Bronx keeps getting these W's, man. You know, from our space, collaboration has been very important and really a foundation for us. We're all about connecting the dots because we are stronger together. You know what I mean? We need to collab. We need to work together because if we won't, who will? You know what I mean? We got to make it happen. We do a lot of events like open mics for up-and-coming artists. We utilize our shop for multiple community events like food distributions where we give out fresh produce for our community. community, and we utilize our platform to, showcase our local businesses, our mom and pop shops, and just show all the amazing things that are happening here by us, for us. And it's been a beautiful journey, and happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you guys for answering. For the cameras who are watching, I didn't hear because I'm from Queens, so I couldn't. I couldn't get called out. I had to go home after this, but I love the Bronx. And everything that everyone does here. Speaking of collaboration, the last time I saw Amaran, he was giving me a check in my store. So that's how collaboration works, you see. But every word that, not everyone used it, but people said it in different ways. Village, right? We have our people, we have our Latinos, we have the Bronx, we have all these people who don't have access. That's what it's all about, right? At the end of the day, it's about community. And gatekeeping in and of itself is literally you make it to a certain point and then you just stop everyone else from coming in. And it happens in almost every area, no matter how lofty that tower is to all the way down low. Everyone's always trying to gatekeep people. And in my area, so I own a bookstore, and I just want to say this really quickly, is that my whole platform, people come in and like, whoa, where are the books you wrote? Nothing, I don't do anything. I shoot a couple TikToks here and there, but my whole jam is like what these people do, is to amplify the voices and the people and the artists that everyone is, and especially the people who don't get the chances to. Because everyone has a scarcity mindset. Not everyone, but some people have a scarcity mindset where it's like, oh, if they're already there, how can I go? If that Ecuadorian already has a bookstore, should I open a bookstore? No. If there's a Puerto Rican cafe over there, should I open mine? No. That's not how it works. And exactly what Emmeline said. How is she the only Black, Latina, African-owned theater in all of New York? In New York, like Wisconsin, okay, but New York, come on, it's crazy. So here we go. Yeah, sorry for Wisconsin. No, Wisconsin, right? All right, that was my bad. But please, whoever wants to answer, where and how have you felt gatekeeping the most in your careers? Do you still feel it today? Did you feel it very much early on? Or is it just a constant thing, like a yearly thing where you're going to enter a room and you're going to have to deal with some people? Whoever wants to answer.
I am still dealing with the gatekeepers because I'm dealing with the studios every week to get the movies for the theater. And it's just, it doesn't end, it doesn't stop. But what I do know is I took a trip to China last year so that I could get Chinese movies, right? I'm here looking for Latino movies because what I know is if that door is locked, then I gotta find another way around, right? Because either I build my own door or because going home and quitting is not the answer, right? And I think that there are enough resources in our communities that we don't always have to try to get in that door. I think we don't really appreciate that as much. But certainly the gatekeeping continues. I just built the second theater, I'm opening a concession stand, and there are gatekeepers everywhere.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Gatekeeping has like a negative connotation, but there are two sides to the gatekeeping. I would say my experience with the New Yorican Poets Cafe, I started my career there on an open mic in 1996, and the founders were still alive. They became my mentors, and they're very much still with me in spirit. And after the pandemic, I was on the board, and then I was approached to become executive director. And the pandemic had happened. The building itself on 3rd Street was completely closed throughout that time. So I had to resurrect the building, a 120-year-old tenement building, to reopen after the pandemic and bring back the programming, bring back what it is I grew up doing in the cafe for all those years. And I'm the first woman executive director and New Yorican poet, and probably the last that was raised by the founders. So I know very well what they wanted, what they were trying to achieve, and what was dysfunctional and what was toxic. patriarchal as a woman. I had to come and not only open up this building for people to come into, but I also had to make it a safe space for myself and for women. It was very challenging. I mean, I dealt with smear campaigns and everything because I also brought in the old staff and learned that we had a alcoholic bartender and no inventory system and things like that. Like things that I didn't know how the New Eurekan lasted. But it was because of the culture and the love. But business-wise, it was not prepared, and so I had to see those things. And thank you. I had to basically dismantle these constructs in the face of people like, you're wrong, how dare you, you don't know what you're doing, and follow my intuition and follow my heart, my gut, everything to basically lead us into this next era. Right now, we did over a year of programming in the building, as dilapidated as it was, and that was a success. But then we closed for what we're calling New Year Reconstruction, a $24 million renovation of the entire building. Yes, a new era completely for the history of the New Eurekan Poets Cafe. And so, there was a campaign to save the New Eurekan from me. And, I'm basically saving the New Eurekan for you. And so I'm very happy that I've gotten to this point. But I would say the gatekeeping portion, I had to be strong enough in my vision and in my knowing to face, all this backlash. But we're in a great place, and we'll reopen in 2026. Yeah, and we've been doing programming even without a building, so we're still doing open mics and slams and everything, that's where the village comes in, all these different venues and collaborating and bringing our programming to these, amazing spaces. So it's not an easy job, and there's, like you said, there is gatekeeping that holds us. Like, I also feel like I've had to be less open about my political views so that I can keep this space open for everyone else to share their political views. So I've had to really gatekeep myself, and but I'm very proud of where we are today.
Do it somewhere very far away. The Bronx needs more bookstores, they told me, and I was like, yeah, I'm not from there, sorry, but I'm from the Queen. So competition, I know we're talking about gatekeepers like the people above, but what about competition within our own fields?
Yeah, facts. I recall early on when we started Bronx Native, for me, I was in my early 20s when I started the brand, and I was, just happy. I just wanted to work. I wanted to make it happen. You know what I mean? It was a passion project. And I remember the gatekeepers, older peeps that's been there for years. And I was so happy to work with them and meet them and connect. And I always, not from everybody, but I got those walls, right? And I got those conversations like, hey, man, we don't want to work with you. We don't want to do this, you're too obnoxious. Why are you saying you're so much? You know what I mean? And I remember feeling some type of way, you know what I mean? I was upset, and I was just thinking like, wow, man, not everybody is out here to see you win, you know what I mean? And a lot of the times, for me, one thing that hurt the most was that it was people from my own community that were gatekeeping, that were, not wanting to see us succeed and all these things. And I overcame that by just focusing, you know what I mean? Making sure that I was grounded, I was rooted, and just putting in that work, 24/7, blood, sweat, and tears. And, I would like to say now we're in a position where you gotta come to us, you know what I mean? You gotta check in with us first. But it is an interesting journey, and I think, especially for young entrepreneurs out here, a lot of times, do be careful out here, you know what I mean, when you go out there, and just look at your surroundings, you know, connect and really communicate what you want to say, be unapologetically your authentic self always. And even though you get those moments, you know, it's high highs and low lows, right? We got to keep going, you got to get up, and you got to put in that work, you know what I mean? And I'm a testament to that, you know, true work, and when you really doing it from the heart, you know what I mean, no one could tell you anything, because you're on the right path. You already know, do it with love. So yeah.
Love that. Yeah. That's beautiful. And I like that you brought up the two sides of gatekeeping, because same as what you're saying is that we got to be careful, because not everyone's going to be in our corner, so it's okay. But we're moving on. We talk about uplifting others, but what does it actually mean and look like? So, Ramon, with Unchin, you've been a platform for some of the most exciting emerging Latina talent and stories for 20 years. What has that taught you, that entire journey? And also, what advice would you give for other people who are looking to build a platform like Unchin, especially now with like the YouTube and the TikToks and all these other ways? Please.
When I started back 20 years ago, I just wanted to document the people that I knew. You know, I came from the Dominican Republic, but I was raised in the Bronx. And my family were my fraternity brothers, the college experience that I had, and that wasn't out there. You know, Latinos that spoke English but consumed the culture. And believe it or not, the first thing that a gatekeeper told us, you got to change the name Unchin, because that's just Dominican. So back then, right, that was a big deal. Advertisers and agencies couldn't relate to what I was trying to do. But I know a culture where my room, my frat brothers, most people were from all over the world, and they understood each other. So anyway, going back to documenting these artists, it fills me. It's a calling. Every single time that I highlight any story on Unchin, I want to make sure that I curate it the best possible way, because it's a goal of mine to make sure that people not only see my kids the right way that are artists, but that these guys that are doing what you're doing, and I see a lot of people here that I'm going to feature, are told in the best possible way. I invest into the quality. I make sure that it's like that we collaborate, that, you know, you're going to put it in your page because you're so proud of it. So that is the best way that I could describe what I get out of doing Unchin.
Beautiful. Yeah. Emily, what did your experience of being a film producer, starting off as that, teach you about supporting artists, and how did that inspire everything else that came after with the cinemas?
Yeah, I'm glad that I was a filmmaker first and had all those struggles because really what I've created is to fix that problem, right? One of the reasons I have to show new movies is because in order to be a movie theater that can qualify independent filmmakers for the Oscars, I have to show new blockbuster movies, right? If not, maybe I would only do independent films, right? But I can't. So there are a lot of things that being a filmmaker. For example, right, we host more film festivals than any other theater in New York, even though we only had one. We just opened our second screen. But with 2 screens, we're hosting more film festivals. You know why? Because I'm a filmmaker and I understand. I understand budget constraints, right? So I'm not going to hit you over the head with that. I also understand the importance of a movie playing correctly. I owned the October Film Festival for 13 years, and I was at a venue where the movie didn't play, and they were like, so what? Like, just so what? What's the big deal? Right? And I thought, I just paid you $16,000 to have my festival here, and you're telling me it doesn't matter? Right? And so being able to live through those experiences was really helpful. The other thing is, even though I had raised millions of dollars for independent films, I couldn't raise any money to open the theater. Because they were saying, well, what are you going to do with a movie theater? Movie theaters are dying. We can't give you money to open a movie theater. It doesn't make sense. And even though I was a business person and I had multiple streams of income built into the business, they still wouldn't give me any money. And so I liquidated all of my assets and I built the theater cash, right? Because I believed in what I could do. And And the lesson in that is do what you can with what you have. What I wanted at the time was the Sunshine Theater because it was for sale. But I couldn't afford it. It was like $27,000 a month for rent. It was crazy. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, there's no way that I could, and it needed $2 million of upgrades. So I was like, okay, I can't afford to buy a movie theater. I can't afford to buy a building. What can I afford? And so I came up with my budget. This is what I can afford. So let me start small. Let me put multiple streams of income. And so a year and a half after I opened the theater, COVID happened. And so now, all the movie theaters are closed except for me. So Chuck Schumer allowed me to stay open because I became essential. Because I was thinking of a venue, space for community. I wasn't thinking movie theater. I was a movie theater, but that wasn't what my brain was thinking. And so I thought, well, how do I serve this community during COVID? So we used the theater for people to watch their loved ones being buried around the country, right? So it was the saddest place on earth, but it was the place that was serving the community the most. At 4 o'clock, we gave away our food every day, right? We got laptops so people could apply for unemployment. We gave away popcorn to kids under 12 at 4 o'clock every day. So we became an essential business during COVID. And during COVID, I made more money than I did the year before with the blockbuster movies. Do what you can with what you have.
Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. Community first. You saw how many times community was brought up again. The village is going to keep coming up. Pivoting, I think, is an important thing that a lot of people don't talk about. When you got to do what you can. Same. I wanted a big-ass building for my bookstore, and I don't. But I make it work. I have a corner, and I do events outside. You're reconstructing. Like, we pivot to what's happening. We pivot with media. We pivot with everything. And I think that's a big thing. So thank you for that. The next is choosing a collaborator. So we're talking about how we choose who we work with, right? Because we can't, unfortunately, based on time constraints, budgets, and everything, we can't work with everyone. So how do we choose? Caridad, as an Emmy-winning poet and executive director of New York Poets Cafe, you're a pillar of the poetry community. How do you and your team create spaces for these poets? How do you choose to both be inclusive while remaining intentional and true to your mission?
Well, I did mention before like-minded and like purpose to work with people like that. I look for kindness, I look for respect, and I look for people of service. That is a guiding force for me. I find that, there's many people you can collaborate with, but are they heart-led? What are they really doing, and for who? And if I feel that resonance, then I follow and work with those people. I've learned discernment over the years. At first, I was like down to collaborate with everybody. Let's do a rap song, I'll do a hook, and and I did do those things, and I was many times the only woman in these spaces, and and I mean, there's this song that I did called Olvídate. It was on my Brujalicious album, and it had like Don Dinero and Chingo Bling, and all these guys, Joel Ortiz, and they were all talking like about shooting up, like guns and, all this violence and all that. I was like, I don't want to be on this hook. Like, I don't want to do this, And Don Dinero was like, well, then what would you say? And I said, okay, cool. I wrote and went in and said, si tú llegaste aquí pa pelear, yo no, yo llegué pa bailar, pa vacilar, yo sé que tú tienes razón pa pelear, pero yo te haré olvidar. Ooh. Yeah. And they let me keep my hook on it. I was like, okay, all right. They were with it. And I didn't, And then I did my verse too. Like the only clapping that I do is with my hands, to make you comprender. El amor es algo espiritual. Nada puede comparar con un día lleno de alegría entre cultura y la mía, la brujita armada con una sonrisa. Un placer, nice to meet you. Maybe I could teach you how to sit back, relax, and forget that we're under attack. And, that was like 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Going from spaces like that to now these cultural institutions and taking that same mindset. It's like, we have to, with all the darkness in the world, we have to create spaces of light. Yes. And help people tap into the creator within, our own creative spirit, our own, that to me is God energy. That's how you get closer to God, is by being your creative, authentic self, not like just taking in all this tragedy, trauma. Like, we have to be able to alchemize that. And so, long story is finding people that you resonate with and that are going to work with you and uplift that mission, collectively.
Yeah, so important. Thank you. Thank you. That's how you know I'm not a poet, because when people ask me, how do I choose to collaborate? I was like, I don't know, vibes. I don't say heart-led, but that's what I'm going to start saying. But thank you.
All of that to say, exactly.
Yo, it's vibes,
Vibes.
actually. Vibes. Maurice, you've worked with organizations like the New York Botanical Garden, MasterCard, to indie artists that perform at your open mics. How do you decide who to build with, and what are some of your non-negotiables?
Yes. Definitely agree with everything, that my panelists are saying. Definitely, people that I always look at what type of impact can we create, right? Always looking to create impact in multiple layers, right? We want to tell a story. Okay, this is not only going to be a merch collabo, we're going to have an event. We're going to have a nonprofit connected to it, right? Some of the proceeds are going to go to an organization. So we're always looking to just create the most impact as possible. I always also look at something called the win-win. All parties need a win. You know what I mean? Dysfunctional collaboration is when one party is getting more, either funds or the audience or any of that stuff. So I'm always every time I collaborate, I'm like, okay, what's the win-win? What are we getting from this? Where are we going with this? And what's next? Something like the New York Botanical Garden, which we just collaborated with them. We came out with a collection called Rooted in the Bronx. We were working to collaborate with them 3 years ago, you know what I mean? And we were connecting with them and stuff like that, because we believe in that intersectionality, you know what I mean? And just connecting the dots, right? A small business, a small brand with an org like the New York Botanical Garden, right? So it took 3 years, and finally they were like, you know what, let's make it happen. And it happened earlier this year. It was really well received, and we got more coming up for the holiday season. So shout out to them, New York Botanical Garden. So the non-negotiables, anytime another collaborator tries to dim your light, you know what I mean, tries to stir away from your brand identity, and it just doesn't align, those are some of my non-negotiables right there. I've had collaborators where they're like, I start all my videos, all my, you're, and they were like, can you actually not say you're, and I was like, what? Nah, I got to, it's part of the brand, it's part of the image. But yeah, anytime that just your authentic self is challenged, and when you just don't feel right, I also agree with the vibes, I've connected with multiple people where you just feel it. You're like, nah, man, this ain't gonna be it, and you just gotta cut it right there. One thing that I've learned, because I was also in the beginning, I was saying yes to everything, I was yes man, yeah, let's do it, let's do this, let's do that, even when it just didn't even make sense, So I've learned to say no. and just wait it out a little bit. You know what I mean? That bigger opportunity is right around the corner. One door is gonna open another door, and just similar to what was said, do it with love, do it with purpose, and just have a good time, man. Because it's crazy out here in these days. So let's get it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you say no or do you say ner?
Nerd.
You know, he did an interview with me for Verizon. He did a spot, and yes, he did that.
I did. Yeah. Thank you,
Even for
thank you.
Verizon.
Consistency is key. Thank you so much. I think also what it's important in all this is that by creating these safe spaces and knowing when to say no or not doing the thing that the person wants, is that you're keeping that space like pure. You know what I mean? And keeping it as a safe space, because if you start working with everyone and then they go off on freaking Instagram 2 weeks later and being like, yo, actually, fuck this. You got to be careful, because then you're going to get canceled. You got to deal with all this, and then you're not making it a safe space for the people you want to make it a safe space for. So yeah, I think that's super important. I was saying yes to everybody, and there should have been a lot of no's in the beginning.
No, and sometimes you think because they're paying a lot of money that, there's good money and there's bad money energetically, like at one point, there was like this, I might be saying too much, but fuck it. There was this, like a spanking society, and they, the president is right there. And they paid good money to rent the New Yorican. And, and they were for a while. And then when I became executive director, I was like, oh, hell no. We can't have no spanking parties up in here. Like, that's all I need. Shit. And they were like, oh, but we put a deposit. And, we were hard for cash. And I was like, I will write another grant, mother. I will not take your deposit. Muchas gracias, and spank away.
Oh my God. That's funny. We were like, you're spanking?
Yeah.
Want to ask one more question from the panelists, and then whoever wants a Q&A, please raise your hand. We spoke about a community. In every time you've had to pivot, and every time anyone can answer this, how has community helped you get through those times? Unchin, I know you've went from magazine to videos, something like that. So yeah, whoever wants to answer, please.
For me, it was right away, people that I feature when I was printing, I went to them. And they became not only curators, but also filters to the type of people that had the same value. So, and it continues to be that way. Every person that I feature, my team is here. You got Chris, Hugo, then you have their friends that are curators, Tunchin. So it's a community, So everyone that I feature, if I feature her, she's gonna recommend 2 or 3 people. It's almost a mix the speed. So I think that's the first thing that I did, is reach out to the people that would feature way back, and it gave me a start. It gave me a path.
Thank you. Anyone? Yeah, thank you. Clap it up. Great. Does anyone have a question in the audience? This one. Right here? Oh, heck yeah. You're louder than me, Jesus.
My question to you guys is, as you started building in your communities, what were things that you didn't know at the onset of when you were building whatever it is that you were building, that you would have liked to know? That maybe if you could go back to your future self when you were just starting off in your respective areas, what is it specifically that you would tell yourself of, like, make sure X, Y, Z?
Yeah. First of all, you have a great voice, bro. Yes, that was amazing. Yeah, for me, early on as a creative entrepreneur, I've always been a creative first. So I kind of, for me, it was just about creating and just doing dope stuff. But definitely having a business, being an entrepreneur, you know what I mean? Make sure you do not skip having a great lawyer and just great legal, an accountant. You know what I mean? Make sure the papers are right. Make sure everything is correct. A lot of times, as creatives, we tend to look over that. I know I did. You know, I was like, yo, I'm just making Bronx shirts. I'm gonna make it happen. You know what I mean? And just documenting, make sure you got all that correct. You know, all that well, because that comes in handy, especially as you continue to grow. You know, so yes, I would say that.
I would say that it's important to know who deserves an answer and who doesn't. When does someone deserve silence versus what you feel? Like, if someone is committed to misunderstanding you, then why would you cast pearls before swine, as they say? Learning that discernment, like learning where to put my energy, and that silence does have power. You can say a lot by not saying anything sometimes, and sometimes that's really all that it really calls for, especially when you're challenged by people, or people are either trying to destroy your character, or, you know, destroy how people see you. Do those people do something that you admire? If not, then it doesn't matter what they think or what they say about you. And knowing yourself so well that you'll know that your integrity and your foundation, the work that you've done, is going to carry you through any slander or anything like that. But knowing, where to put that attention, because a lot of people, you know, they want you to wrestle. And I think there's another saying about wrestling with pigs, and the pig likes it, or some shit like that. Don't quote me, but yeah. Why wrestle in the mud, right, with pigs or some shit like that? Just don't do it to yourself. Keep yourself clean and pristine, and know that those things are not worth your energy, knowing that difference. Yeah, and when it comes back to community, in those dark moments, reaching out to the people that you do admire, that have done things that you aspire to do, finding those people, those mentors, and using that community to keep you grounded, safe, and, you know, on the right track.
For sure. So there's a couple of things that I wish I knew at the beginning. I'm a corporate woman, so I'm always business first, right? How are we going to make money? So even when I was producing, the filmmakers would be pitching, and I would be like, cha-ching, cha-ching, and I'm just running, and there's going to be an explosion, and there's going to be water, and I'm like, oh my God, how much money, right? And then I'm like, okay, and if we sell it, the last movie that was sold to so-and-so, they only got X amount. So I'm always thinking business. And so I went into this with that idea. I'm not really a creative. I'm really a business person. And so I'm a business person who loves the arts. And so the arts is my vehicle to making money, right? And to growing and to getting messages across. But I wish I would have known day one that you can be a business for profit and still do good and be good, right? It took me a minute to get that straight. I was so focused on the business part of it that I was doing good, but not to the level that I should have day one. And so by the time I got into year 2, I understood that I could be a for-profit business, make a lot of money by serving people, right? And I didn't get that day one. So that definitely is something that I wish I knew from the beginning.
For me, I think that what I wish I knew when I started the magazine back 20 years ago was to be more involved like I am now in front. Because depending on other people to tell and to sell your dreams was the biggest mistake I made. This time around, I started a cleaning business, and I never saw cleaning, I saw trust. When I started the magazine, I abandoned myself and forgot that. And now this time around, as I build this again, I promised myself I was not gonna do that. And I was gonna sell trust, even though it was a different medium.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, you know what, something to take away also is that I think a lot of the problems that we all had early on, like a lot of us faced. Like I was wrestling with pigs. I was dirty. I was
remember
muddy.
the quote now.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah, it's
Please
like,
say it.
don't wrestle with pigs because you get dirty and they like it.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I was doing that. I was doing it. They liked it. So, but yeah, I think that's important to take away. Let me see. Do we have time for one more question? No? One more? One more. Don't make it mind blowing. Just be no. Okay, go. Yeah.
With the suppression of arts and with the administration, not to be political like that lady said, but she got to put it. But the thing is, how are you guys pivoting towards being creative and letting free expression flow while things are being suppressed at the same time? Go ahead.
Oh, there's a lot of grant writing that's involved in that, and what kinds of grant, and foundations, private funding, state funding versus federal funding. It's a lot of work. For the first 3 years as executive director, I basically, on top of doing the programming and all of those things, grant writing was essential. That was everything. And luckily, when I would write grants, I would, visualize us winning it. And for the most part, we won every grant that was written. Yeah, and like now we have support, from Howard Gilman, the Mellon Foundation, all different organizations. But also being a nonprofit, but thinking for profit. Like how to create that balance, and learning all these different business models just in case we get shut down, we still can function. So being forward thinking, ahead of that curve, it's just a lot of research, a lot of writing, a lot of networking, seeing how other people have done what they've done, and reinventing the wheel too. So like that's where the game changing part is. Like I was thinking about it. So game changing. If it's a game, you got to treat it like you got to play. You got to be in it. It's a game. And then what are the rules? Learn the rules, and then what rules can you change? Doing it your own way, and recreating a model that people haven't thought of yet. So it's a lot of visualization. I mean, I sit and visualize daily. I sit in gratitude. I meditate daily. Those things like maintaining an abundance mindset in the face of the fear of loss. No matter what. Not allowing what you see. Because if this is a game, then I don't need to see that. Like I play my own game, this game here. This is what I focus on right here. And a lot of the time, if you can pull the reins on your mind, you could train it to think the way out. And it'll appear.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything? One
I
more
just
time?
want to say we are doubling down. You know what I mean? I always say we don't need them; they need us. In the end of the day, So we you're clap it up for that. You already know. Yeah. Doubling down. Everything black and brown, everything us. When it comes to more content, showcasing our people and our community, more events, more safe spaces for breaking bread, for expression, more Bronx merch, Bronx pride, and just making it happen. It's been. We've been seeing some of the effects. Some of the nonprofits that we work with, they don't have the funding anymore as previous years and stuff like that. So it's just like, okay, how can we now figure it out? You know what I mean? You mentioned pivoting. That's a very important thing when it comes to the entrepreneurial journey. And at the end of the day, we are problem solvers here, and we love a challenge. So we're here to work. We're here to figure it out, create solutions, and make sure that in the end of the day, we end up winning, just like we always do. So let's get it.
Thank you.
Yeah, please. Thank you guys all for being here. Please, round of applause for the panelists.
Huge round of applause.
Big, 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 big.
All our speakers.
Yeah.
Yo. Thank you guys so much.